Welcome to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and The Beard, the best television show not on TV. We got an interesting and a full lineup this week for Thursday night. We got 5 games to go over. All NFC East teams are at home this week except the Beard's Washington Commanders, who will travel just up 95, about 30 minutes to take on the Baltimore Ravens. The New York Giants are going to be welcoming the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow to MetLife Stadium for a must-win game for both teams here. 5 games to go over tonight, so let's get right to it. Let's bring in the best co-host in the whole damn country, the left side to the strong side duo. We about to have a little bit of a junior side here, too, because the Beard just announced that he's actually about to be a father coming up here soon. So big shout out to the gang one time. Y'all know what it is, man. The Beard is in the building. What's good, dog?
Big shout out to everybody who sent messages and comments and everything like that. I appreciate all the love and all the support. Yeah, man, exciting time. First one is about ready to be here right after the Super Bowl probably. So I've been trying to convince my wife that if we win the Super Bowl, maybe go with Jayden as the name, but apparently that has been quickly dismissed. Then I tried to slide in a little variation. I said Jadaniels, and she said nah.
Jadaniels, like a Jadena.
So
what position? And we're not revealing gender or anything here, but are we talking about a middle linebacker? Is Coach Awthentik going to be coaching up a quarterback here? What are we talking about here?
I mean, I can hear my wife downstairs laughing right now. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, probably like a Brock Bowers type of situation. Got to be able to run the route tree if you're gonna be, if Uncle Awthentik is the uncle. Dude, if we could, maybe we're like 40, 50 years old coaching some football. You know what I'm saying?
I plan on doing that for sure at some point. Before that casket dips, I should be a coach for somebody. I'm not guaranteeing no victories or nothing like that, but I definitely do want to do some coaching.
That would be pretty awesome. Awthentik and the Beard, coaching and at the same time.
Imagine that podcast. Be a reality TV series and whatnot.
I'm pretty excited, man, and I am very grateful for all the love. I did add, we're working on a baby registry, and I saw this onesie, right? And it said, "My diaper smells like the Cowboys."
Oh, shots fired. Hey, those are some nice flowers right there to start the show off one time, man. Big salute to the gang, man. We appreciate all y'all pulling up, man. Like the Beard said, for giving them some love on this new little baby that's going to be coming to the situation here one time, man. I'm looking forward to being an uncle. That's going to be real dope. Even though I got nieces and nephews now that they got kids. So I'm a great uncle. You know what I'm saying? I got nieces and nephews that are in their 30s right now. And that's how I was coming up. I had older brothers and sisters that were in their 40s. And I was the last of 8 of them. Man, my dad was out here getting to it.
AJ's a freshman at Einstein, by the way.
Yeah. I feel like he should be older. I don't know. When I saw him, I was like, man, he's supposed to be going off to college or something, bro. What's going on here, man? But yeah, big shout out to all of y'all, man. We're going to get right into this because we don't got too much time, man. Y'all know that the Thursday night game here is going to be at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we got about a good hour to get things out the way. Let's go ahead and get right to it. This one's going to be short and sweet. The Cleveland Browns, man.
I don't know about sweet, but
yeah, I don't know about sweet. It's going to be a sour one here, but the Cleveland Browns are going to be traveling to take on those Philadelphia Eagles here, man. This is going to be an interesting one, man. Let's get right into it. All right, Beard. Where do we start with the Cleveland Browns sitting at 1-4, which is, if you
who did they beat?
Glass half full, not too bad. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. So,
oh God.
They were pretty bad themselves until last week when they got their first victory. The Eagles are sitting at 2-2 coming off their bye. Kickoff is Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Eagles are favored by 9.5 points in this one. And that might be a little bit too high here. I don't know. The Eagles might have came back down to earth, but they are getting a little bit healthy here. Over-unders 43 in this one. Last week, the Browns got dog-walked by the Washington Commanders. I mean, that's the best pun of the day so far. And the Eagles were on their bye week. The Browns had 13 drives last week, started the game with 3 3-and-outs. 6 of those 13 drives were 3-and-outs. 9 of them were 5 plays or less. Last meeting between these two teams, the Browns beat the Eagles in 2020. That was 22-17 that the Browns won that one. The Eagles have won 5 of the last 6 matchups, though, which dates back all the way to 2000. So these teams have not played that much in the past couple of decades here. Injuries, man. Devonta Smith, full participant today. A.J. Brown, full participant today. Lane Johnson, we talked about the statistics with him off the field and on the field, full participant today as well. The Browns, on the other hand, they're kind of healthy, but their offense is a nightmare. 15.8 points per game. They're dead last in the NFL right now in yards per game. Their third down conversion percentage is 18%. I know that game against the Commanders was tough. They started out 0 for 11, ended up 1 for 13. They didn't get a third down conversion until about a minute left, you said on that last show. They're last in the NFL in yards per play at 3.8, and they're last in quarterback sack percentage. Deshaun Watson is being sacked on 12.81% of their dropbacks, man. So that's not the vibes right there. Now, Deshaun Watson's numbers, when I took a look at them, I expect just the generic numbers to be a little bit worse. You know, everyone's saying Deshaun Watson's playing the worst football at the quarterback position. Not only like this year, they're saying this is the worst we've seen a starting quarterback look for this long. 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 852 yards. That's just 1 less touchdown than Daniel Jones on the year. And it's a stark difference of what's going on in New York here with the 6-3 touchdown interception ratio, I guess 2-1. And when you look at Deshaun Watson, who's 17th in passing touchdowns right now, I think it's kind of a surprise. Every pass defense that Deshaun Watson has played against this year ranks 19th or worse. And he still has terrible numbers. I think for the Browns here, there's only a few things you can do. They're good at blitzing. They can get after the quarterback a little bit. Myles Garrett is still dealing with that foot injury. He says it's going to bother him for a long time. I don't know what his status is in this game, but they're going to need him in this one. And that defense is going to have to step up and play their top-notch type of football if they want to have a chance at winning this game. Now, Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, if you just look at the box numbers, looks like he's kind of playing worse ball than Deshaun Watson is. That's what's kind of crazy about it. Right now, the completion percentage is not all that great, but I will say this. I think that they're kind of overcorrecting some of their issues from last year with the, facing the blitz and whatnot. And Hurts is playing some of his best football against the blitz right now. He's got a 68% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, which don't sound like much. But when kept clean, he has 2 interceptions. When he's not blitzed, he has 3 interceptions. So 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on a year. I might take Deshaun Watson's numbers over, just the basic numbers here.
You can take the numbers, but not the quarterback.
I don't know. I mean, look, listen, I got to keep it funky. Jalen Hurts is turning over the ball at a high rate right now.
Yeah.
That's not including the fumbles. And this is the kind of game that this could be a get-right game for Jalen Hurts right now. But he's not playing great football, and I do think that people would rather see Jalen Hurts play better football. With everything that happened off the field with Deshaun Watson, I think it's easier to be like, man, screw that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hope he plays terrible. Whereas Jalen Hurts might have some more supporters in his corner. The last thing I'll say on this one is just get Saquon Barkley involved. Right now, Saquon Barkley is still 3rd in the NFL, and he missed a game. He's only played in 4 games, and he's 3rd in the NFL in rushing. I know you're going to hammer some points about RTDB, so I won't let the cat out the bag too much, but what are you seeing in this matchup that is intriguing on your side?
I told Awthentik before we started today, I said, listen, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This game is disgusting. I'm going to be so quick on it. I don't even really have much to say. I mean, Saquon Barkley, the Eagles need to give Saquon Barkley the ball on the first drive of the game, the second drive of the game,
and the
third drive of the game. Just give Saquon the ball every drive of the game. You stop overthinking it. I don't say this quite often. Matter of fact, I rarely ever say this, but the Cleveland Browns stink.
Yeah, man.
They stink. There's no, I feel bad because I've been in a situation before where it's like, the Commanders stunk last year. And I was like, I had to come on here every week. Thank God I don't do the Browns podcast. I had to come on here every week and try and figure out a way that they could not stink and win a football game. I don't know. I will tell you this. If somehow miraculous way, because they already fired Salah.
Oh, yeah, Robert Saleh. Yeah.
Saleh. I don't know why I said Salah, but Saleh sailed away.
Facts.
So if Nick Sirianni loses at home to this Cleveland Browns team, he does not have a job next week. That's a guarantee.
That's a hot take. I like it.
I'm just going to put that out there because there is no way that you should lose this game. You're getting A.J. Brown back. Thank God, because I could use him on a couple of fantasy teams, okay? They're coming off of a bye week.
Wait, hold on. This is pretty damn good right here. This is pretty good. He said he's above us peasants now. That's crazy, dog. Shout out David. What's up? That's crazy.
I've seen a different side of life right now. That's all there is to it. The good quarterback life. It doesn't happen often, so I'm excited. But listen, I think that the Eagles are still that roster is too loaded to be this bad. So I think that they're gonna have their way with the Cleveland Browns. I don't think that this game is close at all. The Browns could really use Nick Chubb. I feel bad for guys like Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, and Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, and Myles Garrett. They should just trade them all. Trade them all. The Browns, I don't know what they're going to do.
It's time to clean house over there.
Yeah, the franchise is ruins right now. They're in ruins.
They're in a bad spot. They're definitely in a bad spot.
They have the worst quarterback contract in the history of quarterback contracts. So history of contracts.
Maybe. I mean, when you look at Deshaun Watson in a total, he has been winning games while not playing his greatest of football, which is crazy. He still has a winning record.
The Cleveland Browns are like rappers of the 90s. They're just getting bent over and screwed.
I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one.
I
don't know about that. I'm talking about the metaphor, but
I mean, you know how it was when you had a record deal in the 90s as a rapper.
Yeah. I mean, with all these Diddy allegations and whatnot.
Oh yeah, well, I guess I didn't know where you was going with that one. Any situation here, the Browns get mollywopped. I was like, I almost didn't even want to give them a touchdown, but I decided out of my feelings for the peasants that they were worthy of at least 7 points. I'm gonna go Philadelphia Eagles 27, Cleveland Browns 10.
Not too bad. Something in me wants to say the Cleveland Browns are going to cover. I mean, that 9.5 is definitely pretty lofty expectations for a team coming off the bye that wasn't playing that well going into it. Now, Saquon, got to get back to him. The first half attempts on the year in 4 games, just 30 attempts. I want to see that number increase. Mm-hmm. And like I said, 3rd in the league right now in rushing. He might be the best player on that team even when they're healthy. His yards per carry goes from 3.57 in the first half to 7.63 in the second half. Just get him the ball. I also think that Jalen Carter and company are going to have a big game. All right? They should have a field day against the Cleveland Browns here. Deshaun Watson leads the NFL as far as quarterbacks being sacked. He's been sacked 26 times in 5 games. The next closest guy is Geno Smith, and he's been sacked 8 less times than Deshaun Watson. Second most with 18 on the year. So get after the quarterback in this game. I want to see Bryce Huff have a big game. I think that, they brought him over there to kind of replace what was going on with Hassan Reddick. And the situation, it's almost like the Jets and the Eagles swapped. And it hasn't been working out for either team, clearly, because Hassan Reddick has not played yet. Eagles obviously going to win this game. And I just don't know if the Browns are going to cover because this is a desperate team. But I think I'm going to go with something like what you're saying, about a good 10 points at least, something like that. I'm going to go, the Browns are scoring 15.8. I'm going to give them 17. I'm going to give them 17. Way. And I'm going to say the score will be 26 to 17. Ooh, that 20, you know what? 26 to 17, the Browns would cover.
Yes, they would cover 9.5.
Let's do that. Let's go with that. Let's go with 26-17 Browns cover. I like it. Felt right. All right, let's move into this next one. This one might be one of the more lengthier breakdowns of the night. Glad we got past that Browns matchup because that shit ain't looking too good. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals that are going to be coming over here to MetLife to take on the New York Giants.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
All right, I'm excited about this one. This is one of the next 2 games that could really reel me right back in on board that the New York Giants could maybe surprise people this year. This one is, and now that I read this, I feel some kind of way. Sunday Night Football kickoff is at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where Daniel Jones is 1-14 in primetime games as the New York Giants quarterback. The Bengals are favored by 3.5 in this one. Over-under is 49. We know last week the Giants beat the Seattle Seahawks 29-21. Bengals lost a heartbreaker in overtime against the Ravens, 41-38. Last meeting, the Giants beat the Bengals 19-17 in 2020. Jones got hurt in that game, and he was out for the rest of the year, I believe, actually, after that one. Brandon Allen was a quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is a very different team. You know, we're not talking Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow type of Cincinnati Bengals. And both these guys have been on fire coming into this game. Joe Burrow is number 1 in the NFL in passing touchdowns right now. He's number 2 in QBR. He's 6th in passing yards. Completion percentage is 72.3. He's got over 30 attempts in 4 straight games and had 29 attempts in week 1. Passer rating over 104 straight games. Somebody brought this back up to me today. Said, I thought Joe Burrow's wrist was all jacked up because I tweeted out the video of him where he was doing a lot of this. And I was like, time heals all wounds. I mean, that was a month ago, and now Joe Burrow is on fire playing some really good football. Jamar Chase right there with him, 85 yards in 3 straight games, put up 193, almost damn near 200 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Baltimore Ravens. The Bengals have scored a lot of points this year. The Bengals have scored over 25 points in 4 straight games. They have lost 4 games by a combined 15 points.
Crazy.
That goes to show you how close these games are, and yes, it is a game of inches. I think the Giants have a decent opportunity here because even the Panthers put up 24 points on the Bengals. The Bengals are 1-4, and that's has nothing to do with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And the Bengals are going to score. They're averaging 28 points per game. That's 4th in the NFL right now. In their last 4 games, the Bengals have scored in every quarter except the first quarter of this Ravens game this past weekend. So the Giants' defense is definitely going to have their work cut out for them. Bengals offense is top 10 in yards per game, yards per play, passing yards per game, red zone scoring, touchdowns per game. They just really can't run the ball that great. And I think a lot of it has to do with committing to the run. They only have 22.4 attempts per game. It's 27th in the NFL, and they're 28th in rushing yards per game right now. Zach Moss coming in a little bit banged up. I think the kid Chase Brown is we saw it against your Commanders. He's definitely a capable running back. And the Bengals right now are just kind of doing their best impersonation of Eric Bieniemy. They're passing the ball 62% of the time. I think our corners, our pass rush will absolutely be tested in this game. And teams are definitely committing to the run going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. They're allowing teams to rush for 33.2 attempts per game. And they're allowing a big chunk on the ground. I want to say they're in the bottom third of the league. So I think the game plan for the New York Giants here is pretty simple. Get back to Tyrone Tracy in this one. Commit to the run. Brian Daboll has done a fantastic job of doing that for 3 straight weeks now. He did it against the Browns. He did it against the Dallas Cowboys with 26 attempts on the ground. And we saw it last week against the Seattle Seahawks where Tyrone Tracy had his, coming out party as far as being RB1 for the New York Giants. Defensively, you got to get some pressure on the quarterback. And I want to talk about some things real quick before I toss this over to you. A lot of people are looking at Brian Burns with, I would say, 2 different perspectives. I heard somebody breaking down some tape today, looking at the Seattle game, saying Brian Burns is a top 5 edge rusher in the league. I'm not going for that quite yet. I think that Brian Burns has a similar problem that Daniel Jones has that I'm going to talk about after I toss it to you, which is he's not playing well in front of this home crowd. He had 6 pressures on the road in Cleveland. He had 6 pressures on the road in Seattle. In his 2 combined home games, he has 3 total pressures at home. So we got to find a way to fix that. No Kayvon Thibodeau in this game.
Yeah.
He has a wrist injury as well.
That came out of nowhere too, didn't it? Because I don't know. I didn't know anything about it until the news broke that he was going to be out for. They're saying a couple of weeks, probably, right?
Look, I looked it up. What that injury normally takes, the time that it normally takes for a normal human being, they're talking 2 to 3 months. So they called him week to week. I don't know. Kayvon Thibodeau might be month to month, but what are you seeing in this matchup?
Well, there's a lot of interesting things that I'm kind of been looking at. Obviously, you talked about Tracy. I know that Singletary was limited in practice today, right? Or yesterday. I'm not sure about what he was today. Neighbors is still in concussion protocol, even though he was at the Travis Scott concert last night. So it'll be interesting to see if those 2 guys play. Specifically Singletary, because if Singletary is a go, so let's say he's active, how does Brian Daboll handle that timeshare between him and Tracy?
I have a couch right here to my right. Hey, Devin, join me. Take a seat. It's Tyrone Tracy time. All right.
I that's what I think too. It's just sometimes I feel like coaches are a little hesitant with that situation. And they're like, okay, Singletary's back. We're going to run him first. And then it might get too late. You got to – if you do run Singletary first, say Singletary's active, you run him first, you have to be willing to be like, okay, this is not working the way it was working last week, especially against a defense that it should be working against. Now we're going to go to Tracy. We're going to ride Tracy the rest of the way. Yeah, you have to be able to make that call at the right time. So that's a couple of things.
I think you better call Tyrone. Shout out to Erykah Badu.
Great, man. Awthentik is on one. I need a sound effect for that one right there. Thank you. So, I mean, you talked about Joe Burrow. I think what's going to be important here is mistake-free football. You know, I talk about a lot of the mistake-free football is a very obvious thing no matter what type of team you are. But I think mistake-free football is very important when you have a below-average defense, because your defense is probably going to be giving up a lot of points. So you're going to need your offense to have to score on almost every possession, a la the Washington Commanders. So the Cincinnati Bengals have to be very careful about, you know, having mistakes, because they have made some mistakes, which is why they've lost 4 games. You know, that has a lot to do with it. Now, we talk about Cincinnati's defense really quick. They're tied for the second most passing touchdowns allowed in the NFL this year. They've allowed 10 passing touchdowns this year. They're tied for the second fewest sacks. They only have 6 sacks on the year. And you talked about about them allowing a lot of rushing yards. It's actually the 3rd most rushing yards that they allow in the NFL, 151.4 yards per game. So the Giants are going to have to attack that sort of, you know, hole in their defense. We talk about Cincinnati. They're giving up 29 points a game, second most allowed in the NFL. They're tied for the 5th worst red zone percentage at 66.7%. The Giants, we talked about this on the recap show on Tuesday. They got away with that win, but they were 1 of 4 in the red zone, I believe. So
yes, sir.
You're going to have to take advantage of a poor red zone defense in Cincinnati and convert if you do get down there. And Cincinnati's third down percentage is the second worst in the National Football League at 47.5%. The Giants, excuse me, talking about passing touchdowns and Daniel Jones and how many passing touchdowns the Bengals have allowed, the Giants had the 5th fewest passing touchdowns as a team in the NFL this year with only 6. The sacks allowed, this is kind of interesting. They're tied for the 8th fewest sacks allowed. They've only allowed 12 sacks all year. So, you know, it seems it's like a different number than what we're used to seeing in the last year or two for the New York Giants. And you're going up against a team that doesn't have a lot of sacks, so you're going to need to keep up those sort of numbers in this game. Now, the rushing game was obviously clicking last week, but prior to that, it's been really tough for the Giants to put together consecutive, you know, good rushing attacks or consistent rushing attacks within a game. They're the 9th worst rushing team in the NFL, even after last week. They're now over 100 yards. They're averaging 103.2 yards per game. So you're going to need to really uptick that, you know, take off of last week and use that as a stepping stone into this game, because you're going to need to. You're going to have to score some points here, New York Giants. You know, that's what I'm most concerned about. Can you really score enough points to keep up with the Cincinnati Bengals? Because you're only scoring, the 6th worst scoring team in the NFL. They're averaging 17.8 points per game. Not much better than the Cleveland Browns. And then we talked about the red zone. They're the 7th.
Like that.
Listen, I'm on that Jayden Daniels high. The Giants are the 7th worst team in the red zone this year. 43.8% in the red zone. They're not too bad on third down. 18th at 37.5%. And then it just kind of comes down to the sacks. Cincinnati has got Joe Burrow. You know, that offensive line is never really like solid, but Joe Burrow is one of those authentic, decisive quarterbacks. So they have the 7th fewest sacks allowed. New York Giants have the most sacks in the NFL. So can you capitalize on the things that you're good on and the things that Cincinnati's bad on? That's going to be the most important thing. Obviously, the Cincinnati secondary, they're giving up 263 yards per game. That's the 5th most in the NFL. The Giants, though, don't have a lot of passing yards per game. They're only averaging 200 yards per game passing. And then Awthentik and I were talking before we went live, and Dax Hill is going to be out for the Cincinnati Bengals, so that's going to be another loss in that secondary that, you know, is going to be an opportunity for Daniel Jones to attack. The question is, can they execute and put up enough points to keep up with Cincinnati?
Good breakdown, man. You know, I had talked about this on Bleach Report that one or two things is going to have to happen for the New York Giants. They're either going to have to pitch a shutout on defense or they're going to have to win a shootout on offense. So I think, like, you can balance some of that with both sides of the ball, but 21 is going to be the magic number for me. The Giants cannot – there's no way that I can see them winning this game if they don't score 21 points. I think 21 might not even get it done. It might take 27, 28, might, you know, something like what we saw against the Seattle Seahawks where they put up 29. Now, I do want to just reiterate some of the numbers because the New York Giants and Daniel Jones are going to be at home And Daniel Jones, we put out the video and we did the stream just on Tuesday where we were talking about these numbers as well. But Daniel Jones is a different quarterback so far on the road. He has been kicking ass and taking names on the road. He has 7.1 yards per attempt on the road, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating of 106.7, 9 explosive plays. At home, these numbers all decrease. 5.7 yards per attempt, 0 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and his rating falls from 106.7 to 62.4 with just 4 explosive plays. So, one, we're going to need explosive plays in this game. It's looking like Malik Neighbors is probably not going to play, so it's probably going to have to be old, reliable Darius Slayton again. Absolutely have to get rid of the drops in this game. The Cincinnati Bengals are not going to allow the New York Giants offense to make mistake after mistake and come out of this game with a victory if this is the Joe Burrow that I know coming into MetLife is going to be a problem. And like the Beard said, you're going to have to put up some points. And it's also going to have to be able to sustain through the entire game. Daniel Jones in the first half this year has 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. In the second half, he has 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. His passer rating goes from 111.9 in the first half to 64.9 in the second half. So we got to find a way to get balance across this offense. I talked about how that's not all on Daniel Jones. A lot of that is on Brian Dable. A lot of that is on Shane Bowen. We know that one hand washes the other when it comes to a defensive game plan in conjunction with an offensive game plan. So we need to marry those two game plans and step on the pedal throughout this entire game. Joe Burrow is one of these guys that if you get him in a hole and he's down 2 scores, he can still come back and win a game. We saw them clawing and fighting against those Baltimore Ravens last week all the way down to the final whistle, past the regulation into overtime. So this is the game where we need to see a complete game from the coaching staff, I think most importantly. Daniel Jones and this offense have been going out there and handling business on the road, and Daniel Jones is doing what he is asked to do and at times doing more than that. So we need to see him continue to play that kind of football. I see a lot of people saying that, the reason why he's not good at home is because the fans are just, pretty much on their hater vibes and whatnot, and Daniel Jones can't play in front of that kind of an audience. Well, then you can't play in the NFL.
Yeah.
So this is the Daniel Jones I want to see step up in this game. Put this offense on your shoulders. Brian Dable, continue to call these game plans that have been very effective for Daniel Jones with the short passing that ultimately will open up the deep shots down the field, and maybe these explosive plays can increase. But still, I want to see this deep ball a little bit more corrected. I know he was 2 for 2 in the last game, but entering the week 4, he was 2 of 15 on deep passes. And I cannot wait to get to your game to talk about some explosive play stuff about Jayden Daniels as well. It just clicked in my head again. But I think that the Giants have to find a way to be able to play well at home if they want to sustain this throughout the season. And who knows, possibly be able to compete in the NFC East and maybe make a run here and stay up there with your Washington Commanders. But the theme of this game to me is touchdowns, not field goals. We saw it against the Dallas Cowboys last time at home. If the Giants were more effective in the red zone, I believe they were 0 for 3 in that game against the Dallas Cowboys. You got to go out there and be over 50% in the red zone for sure. Touchdowns, not field goals. So far in the red zone this year at home, the New York Giants are 0 for 5 in the red zone at home, and they're 7 for 11 on the road. Let's balance this out a little bit more. Protect Daniel Jones. Obviously, they've been doing a really good job of that, our offensive line. I mean, my God. Andrew Thomas, Jermaine Illuminor, John Runyon, even Greg Van Roten, JMS. These guys are all stepping up. And I credit a lot of the reason why the New York Giants have been competitive in the last 3 games here to the trenches. So you got to give props when props are due. Joe Shane is a guy that I've been extremely critical of just as much as I have been of the quarterback, but the upgrades in the trenches have definitely paid dividends so far for the New York Giants. Generate pressure on Joe Burrow, make him uncomfortable like we did Geno Smith, and maybe the New York Giants have a shot in this game. I won't even say maybe they have a shot in this game. Maybe the New York Giants walk away with a victory in this game.
I think they definitely have a chance. It's my main concern is it's kind of crazy. Like, I don't really recall a team being so Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but opposite of what they're normally supposed to be. Like, most of the time, people play well at home and they struggle on the road. It's just tough for me to see an offensive output that can keep up with the Bengals. And the one other thing that you pointed out to me too, and which is something I meant to look up after Tuesday, and I'm kicking myself for not doing it, because we talked about the first half, second half of Daniel Jones. And I wanted to look at what the second half scoring is versus first half scoring in comparison to the Giants, because it's interesting because they do start off slow a lot of times, and then they score in the second half. But then it's like those are the games they lose.
2022 more though, because this year entering week 4, the Giants had only had 15 points in the second half.
That's okay. So that's what it is. So for me, it's like when they are scoring, it's like they're losing it, and they do score in the second half. But the Bengals are a fantastic offensive second half team.
Yes.
And that is going to be so critical for me. So I think the Giants hang tough early on, but until I can see it completed throughout an entire game and at home from the New York Giants, I can't find a map to victory for the Giants in this game. But I do think they can hang. I'm going to give this game to the Bengals 31-20.
It's not bad. The Bengals have been putting up points, 28 points per game, and I think, you broke it down yourself when you talked about the Giants only scoring, 17 points per game?
17.8 points per game.
Yeah, that explains a lot. I mean, they're just coming off a game where they scored 29, and our points per game is still that low. So the Giants just aren't scoring a lot of points. That's the thing. I'm right there with you, man. I need to see a little bit more proof before I get reeled in. If the Giants go out here, beat the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that is clawing to try to get back in that race in that AFC North division?
Yeah, the North.
AFC North division with the Baltimore Ravens and company. This is just a tough matchup here. But if they can beat the Bengals and then they can win next week, I'm reeled in. I think this Giants team is in a good position considering that, we're in week 6 here and they started off so poorly. I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one, though. I don't think they'll quite get to 31. I think this one's going to be – the Giants are going to put up some points, man. I think it'll be a one-score game. I think it'll be 28-24 in favor of the Bengals.
I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that score at all. One field goal, though, for the Giants. 3 touchdowns.
Something like that.
They're going.
I ain't going to say how we get there. You already know. It could be something crazy. You never know.
It's going to be fun. It's Sunday night. I do enjoy when I'm able to watch more than just the Commanders game, like in full, when we're talking about like the NFC East games.
Yep.
And we've had an opportunity with that with a couple of these the teams in the NFC East.
A lot of primetime games. The Eagles had 2 back-to-back primetime games before their bye. The Giants have already played on Thursday night once already, and we haven't played on Monday night yet. You guys played on Monday night, so we've had a good chunk of NFC East games. And Dallas played on Monday night as well. So
and a Thursday night also, I believe. So
the best division in football. That there's a reason for that. But I also wanted to throw out one more thing here is that Daniel Jones, if you remove his primetime games, he's a 500 quarterback. He's just one game under 500 if you remove his primetime game. So maybe he's getting a little bit more comfortable. I saw a guy out there on that field against the Seattle Seahawks that definitely was a little bit more rah-rah.
Absolutely.
A little bit more attitude, a little bit more ape kind of vibes and whatnot.
What do the
so
kids
hopefully
call it these days? Aura?
That's not, it's some aura. A little bit.
Little bit?
Ain't no aura, though. Nah,
Okay,
Daniel Jones
no
be
aura?
a bit like, ain't no aura. Ain't no aura. But let's go ahead and get off into this Commanders game, man. And, talk about your Commanders that are going to be traveling right up the road to take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. All right, so I'm going to start this one off a little bit hot. Chris Peace sent me a message that showed Jayden Daniels' passing charts through 5 weeks.
Oh, yeah. I saw these been floating around, but a couple of quarterbacks passing charts through 5 weeks.
Now, Jayden Daniels' one is very alarming. There are no throws to the left side of the field.
Yeah, I know.
None.
That's what they say.
It's not what they say. It's what the chart is accurately, depicting here.
Trust me, I've heard it all from the Chicago Bears fan base.
It's kind of
crazy.
crazy.
Can't throw to the left side of the field.
Listen, I mean, the data is the data, right? And I think there was like 3 completions on the left side. I mean, it's just all little bubble, little dots on the right side of the field. This guy's playing amazing football, and the numbers have traditionally backed it up through 5 weeks here. But when I saw that passing chart, I should have uploaded it so everybody could see it. But go to Next Gen Stats and take a look at that passing chart. It is the most alarming shit I've ever seen from a guy throwing on one side of the field.
It's like hold on. This you have to know to understand this. It's like our boy back in the day, Obed, right? He had a basketball
no
court.
He's gonna know that, but go ahead.
He had a basketball court in his backyard, right? But half of the court was blocked by like some bars. So he had to always shoot from the left side.
Yeah, I remember.
And he wasn't left-handed, but all of his shots, everywhere we went, came from the left side.
He's always fading to one side. I do remember that. I think Sidney Dean, right? Wasn't that the knock on him? He couldn't go left? I think Sidney. People said that about Jordan too, but there's footage that breaks that that myth there. But the Commanders, man, got a better record than the Baltimore Ravens here. Ravens are 3-2. Commanders at 4-1. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. I'm thinking about taking a trip up 95 to go to the tailgate for this one and just kind of get a little footage for this documentary and get things cracking. Ravens are favored by 6.5. I thought that was a little egregious, but 3 points does go to the home team. The over/under is 51.5. That's a lot right there. Commanders are first in the division. The Ravens are first in the division. Last week, Lamar and Burrow in week 5, man, I think it was the best quarterback play of the year.
Yeah.
And, Burrow had 5 touchdowns in that game. Lamar Jackson had 4 through the air in that game. The Ravens ended up winning it in overtime, 41-38. The Commanders beat the Browns 34-13. Last meeting between these two teams was in 2020, where the Ravens beat the Washington football team 31-17. RG3 did play some quarterback in that game, but it was not for the Washington football team. He had 1 pass for the Baltimore Ravens. And Lamar led the Ravens in rushing and passing in that game with 246 total yards. Dwayne Haskins had a pretty big game that day, too, for 314 yards passing. Rest in peace to Dwayne Haskins. The Ravens and the Commanders are the only 2 teams right now to rank in the top 5 in league in points, total yards, rushing yards, and third down conversions. It might be a little egregious to say that this could possibly be a Super Bowl matchup, but this could possibly be a Super Bowl matchup. I know the Beard likes to hear that right now. 4-game winning streak for the Washington Commanders after losing in week 1 to the Tampa Baker Buccaneers. And the Commanders are number 1 in scoring right now. They've won their last 2 games with a combined score of 76-27. 31 points per game for the Commanders. They're number 1 in third down offense right now in the entire NFL, and they're still 100% on fourth down. The Ravens rush the ball, which I would expect 52% of the time, which I thought would be number 1 in the NFL. It's number 3. The Commanders rush the ball 53.5% of the time, which actually is number 1 in the NFL right now. Ravens.
It's like music to my ears.
That 30 a game. That's your vibe right there. Now, the Ravens have won 3 straight games after starting out 0-2 this year, and Lamar has never started out 0-2. The Ravens have never made the playoffs after starting out 0-2. The previous 4 times they fell short. And Jackson and Daniels right now are the only 2 players, this one had me, in NFL history to average 200 or more passing yards per game and average 50 or more rushing yards per game. Ever. There are no 2 other players that have done that now. Lamar Jackson has a large sample size of the large sample size, and Jayden Daniels has a small sample size of the large sample size. That's really the small sample size, right? Number 1 scoring offense versus the number 2 scoring offense, and the Commanders ain't number 2. Beard, tell me what you're thinking about in this matchup here one time.
I didn't. There's so much to digest here. First of all, Lamar Jackson is. If you're new here, Lamar Jackson is like he's top guy here. He's a top shotter on Awthentik in the Beard.
He's not a running back.
Yeah, he's not a running back. He is. The guy is just. I mean, he is amazing. And I was digging into his numbers today, and I'm just like, God damn, he's really good. Like, I know he's really good, but like his numbers sometimes will give a little bit of ammunition to critics, right? Not right now, bro. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Like that. Dare I say that he should be, in my opinion. I know they're 3-2. I don't know how the hell they lost those first 2 games. I went back and I started really looking at those 2 games. I don't know how the hell they lost those 2 games. Yeah. There's nothing like egregious that stood out to me. I think he's the MVP frontrunner right now, in my opinion.
I think so, too, and I've been hearing some other names thrown out there over his, but I do think he is the MVP frontrunner right now.
Yeah, this game is going to be really intense. Now, I really dug into the numbers because I wanted to try and find some, things here that Baltimore doesn't do so well that Washington can attack. The problem is the Baltimore is hella good at almost everything, and some of the things that Washington is really good at, Baltimore is also really good at. There's not a lot of these kind of lopsided situations where one team is the best and the other team is the worst,
Yeah.
That's going to make it very difficult. It's going to come down to the quarterbacks, I think, obviously. The quarterbacks and the defense, which defense and that's sort of like together, which defense can contain the other quarterback the most, and which team can walk away with the turnover, because I think there's going to be a turnover in this game that's going to be critical. I think that's how close I think this game's going to be. Getting to the quarterback is going to be interesting here because both of these guys can escape pressure. Baltimore has the 6th most sacks in the NFL. They got 16. Washington has tied for the 7th with 15. The big difference here is Baltimore has allowed the fewest sacks in the NFL, 5. So
Lamar Jackson got a lot to do with
Lamar Jackson, right? So that's why I prefaced that whole thing with it. It's gonna be difficult because both of these guys, Lamar is a little bit more shifty than Jayden Daniels is. He's a little bit more scarier, and I think that a lot of that too has come with experience. Lamar he sees the field, the football field, different than anybody else that plays the game. That's Absolutely. Just all there is to it in my mind. Now, the rushing, this game's going to be a big trenches game. The Baltimore Ravens, boy, they run the damn ball. They are averaging 211.2 yards per game. That's not through 1 game or 2 games. That's through 5 games.
Number 1.
That's crazy. Now, Washington's defense is not so good against the run. Well, let's just be honest. Washington's defense is not very good at anything. But they have played better over the course of the last 2 weeks. Now, a lot of that has to do with competition. We'll leave it at that. We're not going to, go too deep into that because, some of these teams that they played, they're not the best, but they're not the worst, except for the Cleveland Browns. So Washington's rush defense is allowing 130 per game, which is the 11th most yards per game on the ground. Now, you talked about Washington being able to run the ball too. So you're like, okay, Washington's going to come in here. They're going to have to run the ball too. We're going to go run for run. We dropping a $178.4 on them. The big difference is Baltimore's run defense is the best in the National Football League.
Is it? I didn't know that. Wow.
They're only allowing 60.4 yards per game on the ground. So, that's where Washington's it's going to really come to test them, and that's going to be interesting. Baltimore, one weakness as of right now is their pass defense, okay? They're tied for the 3rd most passing touchdowns allowed in the NFL. They've allowed 9 passing touchdowns so far this year.
Say it with me, Beard. Denard
Wilson.
Denard Wilson. That's what happens when you lose one of the best defensive backs coaches in the league. That's what happens. We saw it happen with Philly. We saw it happen with the Ravens now.
We need a Denard Wilson soundbite. That's what we
do.
Need. Okay. So they're tied for 3rd most passing touchdowns allowed at 9. They allow the 2nd most passing yards per game at 280.2 passing yards per game. Now, Washington's pass offense is electric, but at the same time, they run the ball a lot. They're very reliant on the run game to activate their pass game. So they only throw the ball. They're the 14th most passing yards per game at 214.2, but they are tied for the 3rd fewest passing touchdowns at 4. So they're going to have to find a way to pass the ball in this game effectively against this Ravens secondary because that is their weak point. Now, I'm not asking you to go out there and throw the ball 60% and run the ball 40%. That's not what I'm asking you to do. But if you want to win a game and you want to be considered one of the best teams in the league, you have to learn how to attack defense's weaknesses, even if it's not your strong suit. Now, Baltimore has the 5th worst red zone defense at 67.7%. Washington has the 4th worst red zone defense at 68.8%. So they're going to have to they're both pretty bad in the red zone. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of points scored here. The big difference here, once again, Baltimore's red zone offense, number 2 in the league, at 75% in the red zone. Washington is 15th in red zone offense. Now, a lot of that has to do with that Giants game, but still, nonetheless, numbers are numbers. They're 56.5%. Baltimore has a 12th worst 3rd down defense at 42.6%. And as Awthentik said, the Washington Commanders are pretty good on offense. 3rd down, they are the best at 51.7%. So it's tough to find, holes in this Ravens team, which is kind of crazy when I went back and I looked at those 2 losses. It just was, it was so tough to kind of find a way. But, it wouldn't be Awthentik in the Beer Thursday night if I didn't find a way. And I think it's time for the roadmap.
Yeah, I forgot something in the house, so let me give a couple more little points before we get on the road.
Yeah. Go ahead. The car's running. I got you, man. I'm used to this by now after 30 plus years.
Come on, normally on time here. But the Ravens, you talked about the way that they're running the ball right now. 6.1 yards per carry is number one in the NFL. They're averaging 34.4 attempts per game. That's number one in the NFL. You said the 211.2 yards. That's number one in the NFL. 1.6 rushing touchdowns per game. That's number one in the NFL. Derrick Henry's averaging 6.0 yards per carry right now. That's number one in the NFL. 6 rushing touchdowns for Derrick Henry. That's number one in the NFL. 572 rushing yards for Derrick Henry in 5 games. That's number one in the NFL. Okay? Now, Derrick Henry is on pace for like 1,700 rushing yards at this clip right here. Okay, we played 5 games, 572, keep doing that, you know where we're going to get to, right? Lamar Jackson has 1,206 passing yards on the year, so he's damn near on pace for 4,000 yards through the air almost here. 6.8 yards per carry for Lamar Jackson. He's got 363 rushing yards through 5 games. That sounds like that's going to get to 1,000 yards by the end of the year. Has anyone ever thrown for 4,000 and rushed for 1,000?
No way.
I don't think so, right?
No, because I maybe Vic did it one year.
I don't even think Vic ever rushed for 1,000.
Oh, yeah, you're right. No,
Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, I think, might be the only 2 dudes to rush for 1,000 at the quarterback position.
I wonder if Lamar's done it before.
I don't think so. I don't think Lamar Jackson has ever thrown for 4,000 yards in his entire career.
I'm gonna write that down and see if.
Please do, because I think this might be the first place y'all gonna hear this. I think Lamar Jackson is gonna throw for 4,000 yards this year and rush for 1,000. If this continues to go on, I mean, this dude's been playing repeat MVP type of football. He's got a passer rating of over 103 straight games, and those are against some pretty damn good teams in the Bengals, the Bills, and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, one other thing that I heard Mina Kimes talking about earlier today on her podcast, if you're not subscribed, Mina Kimes, like, she does a fantastic job. I just love that podcast. It's so good. 99% of the time, the Commanders are playing nickel when they go up against 12 personnel. The Ravens average 6 yards per carry while they're in 12 personnel, and they can also throw the ball out of 12 personnel. They've been running a lot of 12. They've been running a lot of 13. They've been running a lot of 2-back sets as well. Old school, pro form, like, this is just John Madden football. Rest in peace to the football god one time. I think that this is a pretty even matchup. I think that the Ravens defense is going to be the difference maker in this one, though. They've been shaky up and down. They've had some good games and some bad ones. But I think the Ravens defense might be the difference maker. Let's see if this roadmap can actually convince me maybe to get off of the Ravens, because right now I'm looking at the Ravens and I'm looking at taking that 6.5. But you ready to hop on the road here one time?
Let's go. Car's running.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, you're getting on the freeway. What? No, turn right. Get out of the lane. No. Okay, get in position. Just get out the lane.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make this right to the point, RTDB. I don't care how good the Ravens' run defense is. We have to rush for at least 100-plus yards. That's 40 more than what the Ravens are allowing per game right now. If you want to win this game, you're going to have to keep up the scoring. I'm going to need 30 points from the Washington Commanders. Up next, turnovers. The Washington Commanders have to be +1 in this game, okay? I'm not saying that they're not going to turn the ball over. Just finish the game +1 in the turnover battle. This next one's going to be tough, but you got to – it sounds crazy, but it's really not, especially after Awthentik just gave you some of the numbers. You got to hold Lamar Jackson to under 300 total yards of offense. You can do that, you got a chance to win. Speaking of holding numbers under, I'm going to need the Washington Commanders to hold the Ravens under 150 total rushing yards. And last but certainly not least, the key to victory week in and week out for this Washington Commanders is to win third downs and time of possession. If you can do all of those things, you can walk away with the victory.
Like that. I like that. We got here quick, man. Let's go. I only got a stretch. I'm ready to get right to the beach. Let's go. All right, but this is the moment of truth for real. It's been a really good year for your Commanders, sitting at 4-1 right now. You know, they've gained your confidence in that team. You're feeling good. I told you to feel swaggy about them. You've been doing that the last couple of weeks. Are we picking the Washington Commanders to win this game?
Last name Simpson. First name Homer. Commanders 31. Ravens 30.
31-30. All right. Damn. This one's tough, Beard, and we don't have a lot of time. I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. I think this will be a game where the Washington Commanders come back down to earth offensively. We're not going to get over that 30 points per game this go round. I'm going to say this one's going to be 28-19 in favor of the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm not mad at that. I can absolutely 1,000% see the game going that way, which I don't think would be a blemish on Washington. Let me just say that, like, no matter what happens in this game, where Washington is evidence of what they're doing, you know. But I do know that if they beat the Ravens, there's going to be a lot of hype. And if they lose to the Ravens, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, oh, it's just a phase or fad or whatever, you know, equivalent to that in football terms is. So it's going to be interesting.
Yep, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Let's get off into this last NFC East matchup before we get off into the Thursday night football game. This one's going to be the Detroit Lions. This is a good game. Going to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys. I found this one a little interesting here. You know, the Lions are coming off their bye week. They're sitting at 3-1. The Dallas Cowboys are now at 3-2. One of the more harshly judged 3-2 teams in the league right now. Kickoff is Sunday at 4:25 p.m. Lions favored by 3. The over-under in this one is 52, which is higher than the Ravens and the Washington Commanders. I thought that was really interesting, being that those were two of the top scoring teams in the league, and the Dallas Cowboys really have not been putting up the type of points that we're accustomed to seeing. Last week, the Cowboys were coming off that last-second victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lions coming off the bye. Last meeting, the Cowboys beat the Lions. It was the 2-point conversion controversy where they had the extra guy in the huddle that they deemed not an eligible receiver when, in fact, he really was an eligible receiver, and the Cowboys skated away with the victory, and it cost the Lions the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Lions have won 3 of their first 4 games in consecutive years now for the first time since 2013. We're talking over a decade here now. And the Lions are about to play 4 out of their next 5 games on the road. This is absolutely a must-win type of situation for both of these teams. I know the Cowboys don't want to fall back down to 500, and the Cowboys now have lost 3 straight games at home after that streak of, I want to say it was 18 straight at home. And to now be losing 3 straight at home is definitely interesting for them. And the Cowboys have a 6-game winning streak versus the Detroit Lions. I mean, the last one was a little bit fugazi, obviously, but they got the W. That's what it said in the column. That's what it is. Cowboys have won their last 2 games by a combined 8 points, and they are just skating by the hair of an authentic chinny chin chin, as the Beard has been saying the last couple of episodes. They're not scoring a lot of points, man. Just 23.4 points per game. It's dead middle of the pack in the NFL right now. They still can't run the ball. They're 31st in rushing. They're 31st in rushing yards per game and yards per attempt right now, 3.5 yards per attempt. Rico Dowdle kind of got it together, I guess, last week, you know, in a game where he had 87
best game
yards.
Of his career.
It's not saying much. The dude's pretty much been a backup running back, you know, his entire career. He has definitely taken over as the lead back in Dallas now that Ezekiel Elliott has proven that there's not much left tread on them tires right now. The Cowboys right now do not have a top 10 unit anywhere, and I'm not accustomed to seeing this.
Yeah.
Not their rush defense, not their pass defense, not their scoring defense, not their scoring offense, not their passing offense, not their rushing offense. All outside of the top 10. And they're dealing with some injuries, obviously. Micah Parsons did not participate. Neither did Zach Martin. They're saying that this might be like a veteran type of let you kind of chill type of situation because you need some rest with linebacker Eric Kendricks as well. Kalen Carson might be back in this game. I think they need him. Deron Bland also could be activated this week after the foot injury that had him on IR for a little while.
Huge for them.
It would be huge. And their defense did play good last week. I will give them that. But offensively, we're still waiting for that breakout CeeDee Lamb game. He still doesn't have a 100-yard game on the season. And the Lions allowed the Seahawks to set a record of 38 first downs in a loss. Their defense is not that good right now. CeeDee Lamb's best game came against the New York Giants where he almost had 100 yards. It was 98 yards. He did have a touchdown in that game. He has just 2 touchdowns on the year. Didn't get one last week. CeeDee Lamb has not gone 2 straight games without a touchdown since week 5 of 2023. So I expect him to get in the end zone. And he also had a career-high game against the Detroit Lions, which was in last season's matchup, 227 yards by CeeDee Lamb.
That's a dog of a game.
That is a dog of a game. And Terrion Arnold has been struggling out here. He's been called for pass interference or holding 7 times in the last 4 games. I'd look for Dak Prescott to definitely attack him. He's probably going to be on CeeDee Lamb a couple of times in this game. But Dak Prescott has really been carrying this offense. It reminds me kind of what we're seeing with the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow. But if the Lions can get pressure on Dak Prescott, it can change this game. And that's difficult because Dak Prescott, one, is really good against the blitz.
Good.
He's a guy that gets rid of the ball extremely fast. It's very hard to get to Dak Prescott. Decisive Dak, as I like to call him. But he cannot turn the ball over in this game. He got away with it last week on Monday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers with 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. The guy you got to watch out for is Aiden Hutchinson. 40 pressures on the year, 7 sacks on the year. That is what a top 5 edge rusher looks like in this league. Now, Dak Prescott, though, he has 250 passing yards in 12 straight home games. And for you Dallas Cowboys fans, I hope I did not jinx that. They got to play better at home. You got 3 losses. I think you got to commit to running the damn ball, obviously. They're coming off a game where they had 105 total rushing yards. I think that's their highest of the season versus a good defense. Pittsburgh Steelers are a solid defense, and they found a way. Now, defensively for them, you got to stop Jared Goff in this offense. Jameson Williams having some big plays. I think he has 2 receptions for a touchdown over 50 yards in back-to-back games, which is some unheard of type of shit. Jared Goff has not thrown an incompletion since September 22nd. I know they were on the bye. 6 more completions for Jared Goff, and he can break this record. So I'm going to be looking for him to start this game off kind of hot. I'd like to see him break this record because the other quarterbacks on this list.
Ooh, I know who it is. Is it Mark Brunell?
It's not Mark Brunell.
What?
That record got broken a long time ago. Mark Brunell was at like 21 or 22.
Okay.
You want to take another guess? It's not some really good quarterbacks. There's one quarterback in that range of a Mark Brunell, I'll say.
I have no idea. I was set on Mark Brunell.
Phillip Rivers had 25 in a game.
Hall of Famer.
Nick Foles had 25.
Super Bowl winner.
Ryan Tannehill had 25.
He doesn't have any accolades.
And this guy's a backup quarterback for your Washington Commanders right now.
Marcus Mariota.
Mr. Marcus Mariota. This matchup is tough. If it's the Dallas Cowboys offensive last year, I'd go into this one kind of easy and pick the Dallas Cowboys. I'm very uncertain. How you feeling about this matchup, though?
Listen, this is not Pittsburgh, okay? The Cowboys cannot turn the ball over 3 times and win in this game. Let's just be honest. Nothing against Justin Fields, but that Pittsburgh offense it's not as high octane as a Detroit Lions offense is, okay?
Yeah.
So you cannot turn the ball over 3 times and expect to walk away with a victory. That just will not happen. This is a game that's kind of interesting because the over-under is so high, and you're thinking about 2 potentially very potent offenses. I think this game is going to be kind of won and lost in the trenches. It's easy to look at Goff and Williamson and the Sun God and Sam Laporta, but you cannot forget about how effective the 2 running backs are. I mean, Montgomery and Gibbs, I think maybe you could argue Eckler and Robinson, but I think that Montgomery and Gibbs is the best running back tandem in the National Football League.
Yeah,
and they're so good and they're so versatile, and the way that the coaching staff uses them is it's like art. And I appreciate that. So they're averaging 151.3 rushing yards per game, which is 6th most in the National Football League. Dallas allows the 9th most rushing yards per game at 135 yards per game. And on the flip side of that, Dallas is only running the ball at 82 yards per game, 2nd worst in the NFL. Detroit's run defense is solid. They're 4th best. They're only giving up 90.8 yards per game in that aspect. Detroit's passing defense is kind of where they're lacking, and that's why I agree with what you're saying is that this is going to have to be a Dak shoulders sort of game here because Detroit's given up the 6th most passing yards per game, at 258.3. Dallas's passed offense yardage per game is 2nd highest in the NFL, 271.6. But Detroit, this is the interesting part. They give up all those yards.
That's a good number you just brought up about Dak and the offense, that their passing yards is so high up in the league. Mm-hmm. Total yardage, they're at the middle of the league, obviously because they can't run the damn ball.
It's a problem, and that's why people think we're just old guys, telling people to get off of our lawn when we want to run a ball. But it's
but stay the fuck off the lawn anyway.
Yeah, it's so helpful to have a complimentary run game. And the interesting part is that Detroit kind of in that bend don't break sort of situation when it comes to the pass game. They give up all those yards, but they are tied for the fourth fewest passing touchdowns allowed. They've only allowed 4 passing touchdowns the entire year. So, it's kind of interesting. If Dak can't connect on a touchdown, can Dallas find a way to score in the red zone? Now, Detroit's red zone is a little funny because I think they go for it a lot more than what they should and a lot more than what other teams do, like in particular situations, let's say 4th down in funky territory. So they're 17th in the league in red zone at 52.5%. But Dallas's red zone defense, once again, is absolutely horrendous. They're the 2nd worst red zone defense in the NFL. They're allowing a red zone percentage is 78.6%. So I just Detroit's off of a bye week too. Dallas just played their toughest game of the season, and I love the way that they played. But I don't know if they can bounce back after a matchup like that and get right back to the trenches. I just think they come up a little bit short in this game, and I'm going to go with Detroit 29, Dallas 20.
Whew, okay. We already had one game different here with the Commanders and the Ravens, and I think we're going to have this one different. I'm just looking at the previous games from the Lions. They beat the Rams 26-20 in overtime. They beat the Bucks, or they lost to the Bucks, 20-16, and they beat the Cardinals 20-13, and then they just beat the Seahawks on Monday night 2 weeks ago. I like what Kai said. The Cowboys not going 0-3 at home this season. Yeah, I think everything's on the line for the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys by about just over a touchdown. I'm going to say this one's going to be 28-20, Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, 28-20, so we're almost flip-flop.
And let's get this super chat before we get off into the next
Big
one.
Shout out to Jayden, 714 for the $1.99 super chat. Says Rattler. Spencer Rattler is a quarterback name, by the way. Rattler going to ball out, and New York Giants could have had him. Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Drafted in the 5th round, and coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah, that was a good little insurance policy for Derek Carr and whatnot. I know they got the other quarterback over there that they were kind of juggling, trying to figure out who's going to start. Yeah, I can't. They said his name on a broadcast I was looking at the other day. Don't sound right. I ain't gonna lie, but you could be. I'm not the one that would really know, to be honest. But big shout out to Jayden, man, for supporting the channel. We definitely appreciate that, my dog. All right, let's get off into this last game and get people out of here on time so that they can go watch a little bit of Amazon Prime one time. This one's going to be an interesting matchup here, man. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Let's get to it, Beard. All right, San Francisco 49ers, right? I don't think the panic is quite settled in the way it has for some other teams sitting at 2-3, but they are at 2-3 right now. The Seahawks are at 3-2. Kickoff is tonight, 8:15 p.m. Amazon Prime. Make sure to turn on your Prime Vision. The 49ers are favored by 3.5 in this one. Last week, the Niners lost to the Cardinals. Very surprising loss, 24-23. 49ers were 1 for 6 in the red zone in that game. Trash. Definitely terrible. They were the best red zone team in the NFL last season, converting at 67.2% of the time, man. So that's definitely a stark difference over there. 49ers were shut out in the second half for just the 6th time in 8 seasons under Kyle Shanahan. Seahawks coming off that loss to the New York Giants. I saw Richard Sherman on his podcast talking about it, like slipped up, let one get away. I just don't think the Seattle Seahawks are that good of a team this year. You get a little bit of data, and you get to see them play up against a couple of teams that are, not the premier teams in the NFL, and they look a lot better than I think they really are. Last meeting, the 49ers did beat the Seahawks 28-16. That was just last year. Seahawks are back at home at Lumen Field, where they've sold out that stadium for 175 consecutive games. The 12th man is a real thing. I applauded Daniel Jones for his play last week in front of that audience. It was loud. It was rocking in there, and he was definitely handling business. We'll see if Brock Purdy will be able to do that. This is going to be the Seahawks' 3rd game in 11 days. They played Monday night against the Detroit Lions. They played Sunday against the New York Giants, and here we are on Thursday Night Football going up against the San Francisco 49ers. It is back-to-back home games, so that does help them out just a little bit. 49ers are coming into this one with 5 straight W's against the Seattle Seahawks. And the 49ers have lost their first 2 games in the division this season, which is very surprising. They've been blowing fourth-quarter leads as well. They blew 2 10-point leads in the fourth quarter on their losses this year. It's giving the Niners an NFL high 18 blown double-digit leads in the regular season or the playoffs since Coach Kyle Shanahan was hired in 2017.
That's not good.
That ain't good. And Kyle Shanahan was over there with the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl, right? When they blew that lead as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think it's kind of similar to how we were talking about Cliff Kingsbury in the month of December and then winter kind of falling apart a little bit. I need a big game from Brandon Ayuk. He definitely gave us a big game last week.
Bounce back.
Yeah, and I needed that for my fantasy team. Like, when Brandon Ayuk plays well, I have a good shot at winning. In 4 games, he had just 13 receptions for 167 yards. And last week against Arizona, he had 8 for 147. So he damn near got all of what he had this whole entire season in one game. He's had fewer than 75 yards receiving in 6 of his past 7 games against the Seahawks. I think that this Seattle Seahawks defense, though, is a lot different than what we've been accustomed to seeing the past couple of years, dealing with a lot of injuries, dealing with a new head coach, defensive-minded head coach, and I don't think, they're quite got their feet wet just yet in that system. I think that they're going to struggle a lot tonight, and I think it's going to start with the run for the San Francisco 49ers. Jordan Mason has been the best you can get from a backup running back.
Say it one more time.
CMC.
Say it one more time. Because
Jordan Mason came out of nowhere,
me.
too, man. Like, for you people that were hit to the waiver wire when this guy was, out there and CMC's injury first became a thing, 536 yards in his first 5 games. It's the most ever by a 49er running back. Tyrone Tracy just ran all over these Seattle Seahawks, so I expect Jordan Mason to have another 100-yard game. He already has 3 on the season. You can book it. It's going to be 4 here, and we'll see how the Seattle Seahawks fare, but I'm leaning towards the San Francisco 49ers in this one, bro.
So, listen, I want to double down on Jordan Mason really fast. A lot of people they like to make excuses for teams like San Francisco, right? A lot of these blue blood sort of teams, they get passes and stuff like that. They either get passes or they get held accountable worse than other teams do, a la the Dallas Cowboys, right? So, they don't have their best player. That's true. But Jordan Mason, and that's why I think it kills me. Like, I listen to people, and they're like, that Jordan Mason's done a pretty good job. I mean, god damn, he's like the number 2, 3 in yards in the NFL. What do you mean he's done a good job? Right, he's done fantastic.
Somebody told me that about Joe Burrow. Like, he's been playing okay. I was like, he leads the NFL in passing touchdowns right now. He just put up 5, bro. Like, what do you mean? What are y'all standards, bro? This ain't like, we're not playing Madden Dynasty League or something here.
It's crazy to me. And I think that, to be honest with you, San Francisco probably might not have any wins if it wasn't for Jordan Mason.
I hear you.
And I don't want to take away anything from Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. And I was wrong on him because I doubted him, and I gave him a lot of crap early on. And he proved me wrong. But I haven't seen that next jump from him yet. Like, he's kind of like, he's a little bit above average quarterback right now. But I hear people talk like he's like possible MVP candidate, and I'm like, I don't know.
I saw Colin Cowherd had him at number 3 in his the hierarchy of quarterbacks through 6 weeks right now, and I really haven't been paying attention to his numbers. I did want to pull him up. I mean, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. 1,300 yards though.
Yeah, he's slinging the rock around. I think it'll be interesting because they have had a lot of inconsistency in their wide receivers and tight ends as far as who's been playing and who hasn't been playing. Deebo Samuel historically absolutely slashes Seattle. I mean, like, he dominates against Seattle. So it might be a big Deebo game. I think these NFC West games are always fun for me. I always enjoy when these teams play together. I think it's always a good game. I'm going to take San Francisco 28, Seattle 27.
28-27 for San Fran. I think it'll be a little bit larger of a victory for them. I think the 49ers get back on track in this one. I think they're going to score about 20 in the first half. I'm going to go 30. I'm going to go 30-17 in favor of the San Francisco 49ers.
You're in the book, sir.
I like being in the book, man. That's what's up. Any last words before we get up out of here?
Nah, once again, big shout out to everybody in chat. Big shout out to, everybody who's been watching on the replays. Big shout out to everybody who showed a lot of love to my wife and I for expecting our first child. We appreciate all of that. Listen, we are in the heat of the battle right here for NFC East teams. Every team every week is clawing their way through this. The NFL did one of the best jobs they've done in recent history with this schedule. And a lot of that comes with just
You would say that, you Commanders fan.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of good matchups,
Yeah,
a lot of
I feel
tough
you.
matchups. And some of these teams, we might see a lot of these records change as far as, no 0-2 team this and no 1-4 team that. A lot of these teams are a lot better than their records say, and a lot of these teams are a lot worse than what their records say. So just remember, this is a week-to-week league, and I'm excited, and I want to thank Awthentik for reminding me that I am allowed to be excited about my Washington Commanders and Jayden Daniels. So, just enjoy your teams, and don't get too high, don't get too low. Just ride the wave. You know what I'm saying?
A great philosopher and a fantastic man with the literature once said, "Turn down for what?" His name is Little John.
Yes.
And you guys are balling out right now. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. I'm hoping my New York Giants can claw our way, get a little bit closer to the top of this division, so that by the time we see y'all the next time, be a little bit of something on the line there one time, a little bit of high stakes, man. Shout out to De La
very
Soul.
glad that game. I was telling Josie the other day, I was like, I'm so glad that game was early in the season, because the ticket prices for Commanders games are just it's going to be absolutely bananas.
They're skyrocketing. Chris P sent me a nice little link I'm gonna share with you. I don't know if he sent it to you, but definitely blessed us with some ticket vibes there one time. But y'all know how we end every show, man. I hope y'all enjoy y'all Thursday night football tonight. Enjoy y'all Sunday football. Make sure to check us out on the parlay in the morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And best of luck in your fantasy leagues before we even get to the parlay, man. Make sure you're making those moves. Keep your eye on the waiver wire, man. Some players out there right now. I just scooped up a couple of dudes, too. But we end every podcast the exact same way. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams. Because a life without dreams is black and white. Y'all know what it is, man. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT Combat Jack one time. And that's a wrap, y'all. Enjoy this Thursday night game. What a great way to kick off the week with the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. We'll catch y'all on Sunday before the parlay, and then we'll catch y'all throughout the week, man. Y'all know what it is, man. Awthentik in the beard, left side.
Strong side.
Y'all be good, man. Enjoy y'all football. Peace.
Spike don't care.